My name is Bygrave. I'm a professor of law at the University of Oslo, where I do teaching, research, and I also direct a research centre dealing with computers and law, or the regulation of technology by law. I've been looking at particularly the contractual mechanisms in the ICANN-led or ICANN-based regime, and the way in which contract functions in that regime, and the sorts of leverage that the various contracts give in relation to the various players, the complexity of the resulting system, and the utility and ultimately the legitimacy of using contract to govern a set of globally important resources such as the domain name system. I don't regard myself as an expert in what we call public international law, but I certainly have an appreciation of the basics of public international law. But I have also some expertise in issues of what we call typically private international law, that is jurisdiction, conflict of laws, enforcement across borders. There is a lot to be tackled in getting these accountability mechanisms revamped, enhanced, to some extent replaced as we go forward into a post-IANA contract situation. Context also, I think, is fairly unique, given that we have an internet development that was at least coming out of US-funded research initiatives, and that gives us a baggage that many other organisations don't have to deal with. I'm not saying it's bad baggage or really problematic baggage, but nonetheless it is baggage that needs to be dealt with in a constructive way. I think it's a very important process. I'm not sure if one would call it a watershed moment, but it is an opportunity for ICANN and the communities that are around ICANN to revamp, reconstitute the regime in a way that will promote the interests of the entire community. And it's impressive the way it's happening without obvious interference by governments. So it's an amazing experiment in true bottom-up, multi-stakeholder policy development. Keep an eye on the big picture, particularly keep an eye on the stakeholders that aren't necessarily represented here very well at Istanbul or in the correspondence negotiations that will occur beyond Istanbul. And that's something we've been discussing amongst ourselves. How do we ensure that our feedback gets taken account of in time? Because there's a danger that if we are just always acting sort of ex post, that our commentary comes into discussions at a time when the discussions in fact dealt with what we're dealing with and moved on to other pastures. Trying to marry that role where we hover, but at the same time give ourselves and our perspectives enough traction in the process, that's a challenge. And I'm not sure if I don't know if we've come to a workable mechanism yet, but it's something we are working on.